Welcome to episode 1 of Lessons Through Living. So, I know I have my Voices of Vulnerability series that I do, and I wanted to do something that, the Voices of Vulnerabilities, like, that's what I do, like, when I have a guest on. I wanted to do something that was, like, related to just, like, me, my own personal experience, and what I've been through. And hopefully you'll be able to relate to some of the things I talk about. Anything from, like, relationships to career to life in general. So the series is called Lessons Through Living. Just lessons that I've learned over the years through my 27 years experience. Um, so episode 1 is going to be on romantic relationships. It's a pretty deep subject. So this series, not sure like how far it will go or how deep I want it to go, but yeah, I just want to be kind of like with Voices of Vulnerability, just like raw, open, out there, and just tell you everything pretty much that I've experienced. Same with kind of what I have my guests do and what I've done a little bit on the 2 episodes that I have had. So, episode 1 is on romantic relationships. My experience with romantic relationships. Well, I'll tell you this. I I dated someone for 4 years, and that was my longest relationship I've had. It was 4 years. It was out of high school, actually. So I was going away to college to play football, and um, in a very short period of time between my high school graduation party and the 9 days that I left to go to college, um, we started dating, and I was moving an hour and a half away. So it definitely wasn't my plan to start dating right before I went to college, but everything happens for a reason. So um, my longest relationship was 4 years. My shortest one was 2 weeks. So, and I'll tell you though, I learned just as much in that 2 week span than I did in that 4 year span. So, I would say a pattern that I've noticed within my romantic relationships is, well, we'll start here with the first one, the long term one. Um, so that one, obviously, from 9 days, it moved pretty quickly. Um, which that's all right. There's different, hear about people who get together and they get married in a year, or people, everyone like has their own timeline, But I was 18, she was 17. So I think that's definitely, you got to put age into that perspective as well, because when you're that young, you're still like learning who you are, and you're learning what you like, what you don't like, and who you're becoming, and who you want to be. Um, as you gain years and experience, you know who you want, like you know who you are, you know what you want out of a relationship, and what direction you're heading in. I would say, in terms of possibly your life, your career path, and just in general, like you definitely have a better idea of who you are at 25 than you do when you're 18, right out of high school. So, uh, but yeah, that one moved pretty quickly initially, and I my biggest takeaway from that one, I would say, is you gotta you gotta meet people where they're at. So never never try to change anyone, and always love somebody for who they are. So for example, never never fall in love with someone's like potential, I would say. And that's been a lesson from all of my relationships, I would say, is I tend to see the good in everybody, and I see them like who they could be like at their best, even if they haven't shown it to me yet. Like I still believe in that, and I believe in them, and I will I'll see them for who they could be, and not for who they are. So the problem with that is this wasn't so much the case for my first one. I'd say my first one or my long term one, I would say the biggest lesson is would be like don't try to change someone, and don't ever change for someone, because you can never make somebody change, right? Like people only change when they want to change. You can inspire someone to change. Like you can do something, or you can change yourself, and people could see like a difference within you, and they could see, how happy you are, how better off you're doing in life. um, and that could inspire someone to change. But you trying to change someone or giving people ultimatums, you'll never get someone to change, and plus they'll just end up resenting you anyway after that. So, but also never change for someone. You gotta you gotta be with someone who loves you for who you are. But back to what I was talking about, the meeting people where they're at and their potential. So this happened actually like a couple months ago, where I found myself, um, I would say, I knew this person's potential, like I could feel it, and I knew by our conversation, but they weren't always showing that to me, or like the behaviors that they exemplified, it wasn't always that. So when you fall in love with someone's potential, you're loving a version of them who they haven't shown yet. And then when they can't meet that expectation, that's when problems arise. So, for example, someone's potential is up here, the part that you're falling for, or the part that you know they can be, but they're only giving you this right here. So when they don't close that gap and meet that potential, you you can always find flaws in that person. Obviously, everybody has flaws. Nobody's perfect. We're all perfectly imperfect. But in a sense of a relationship and what you expect out of someone, you have to take it for face value and meet them where they're at. So if someone does a certain thing that you don't like, and you're like, or someone exemplifies behaviors that really don't align with you or your relationship or your values, but then you think to yourself, oh, well, maybe I can change this person. Or you have that hero complex like I did, and you want to save everybody because you see the good in people. But again, like you have to meet people where they're at, and if you see or recognize that this person has potential, like that's okay to recognize that, but don't fall in love with who they could be. Fall in love with who they are. And if you're not ready to be with who they are, then you're not ready to be with that person. You shouldn't be with them at all. Um, Another thing, a big, huge lesson that I'm still actually, I think I've learned this lesson. Um, I just have to, an opportunity has to be presented so I can integrate the lesson that I've learned. That would be having a solid foundation. I would say, to your relationship. So getting to know the person on a mental and spiritual level, I would say, before a physical level. And when you start off only knowing somebody on a physical level, your foundation is weak, because after that, after that part's over, then what are you what do you and the other person have to go on? If you don't know, really, if you don't know yourself, really you can't know somebody else. But also like a mental level, and I would say a spiritual level before a physical level. And that would go with moving too quickly. would be another thing that was a big one for me. That and overgiving. And I would say overgiving goes to, I would say, um, probably it probably came with the fear of abandonment or feeling of loneliness that I didn't want to experience. So like subconsciously, I would I would overgive to that person, or even when they never met me halfway, I would still go out of my way for that other person. Just I guess just to keep them in my life, I would say. But really, I didn't recognize it as that. I just always I would say in general, I'm a giving person, which is why I did that. You know, I rather much rather would give to someone than receive, but also you have to be willing to receive because in this life, it's a give and receive relationships we have to have. So so not rushing into things is a big one, and taking your time to get to know the other person, but also like don't place that's a big one. Don't place somebody on a pedestal. So there was times oh okay so that like don't place somebody on a pedestal, but also like I'm sure we all do this, but like you get to talking to a person and like the connection is there, you know, and you start to develop feelings for the person, and then before you know it you're putting this person on a pedestal that they haven't earned yet. So I'll say like if I'm talking to someone and then I start thinking of this person like oh like we have a future there, or maybe like as my girlfriend, and then like I put her on my pedestal like as that, but she hasn't shown that she deserves to be in that spot, like putting that person in that place, and then that person disappointing you or things not working out, and now you're disappointed because you had that person up high when really they didn't earn to be up there. I think a lot of my disappointment came from that. It came from myself, not from the other person, because the other person, you know, they don't really do anything wrong. You know, it's how we react to things, but also like where our mindset is in the sense of things. So if you're coming from a place of like lack or loneliness, and then you quickly jump to an expectation of having, we'll say, like a void space filled, like in your mind, the void space is filled, but really that person was never meant to fill that void space, and that they couldn't fill it. Plus, I don't really like to think of that like as a void space. I like to think of a relationship as like two whole people coming together. So you get you being whole, the other person being whole, and you coming together. Not really as a void space. Like you have to be able, you have to be comfortable. I would say, being alone, like being single by yourself. So there's it can be difficult at first, you know, but there's a huge new level of appreciation and self love you get for yourself when there's no one there, you know, to that significant other role. So really, you're playing that role for yourself, and it's a whole kind of other self love and self respect that you get for yourself, and you really get to know who you are. You get to know who you are, what you want, and like you really like you're setting your bar there. So when people do come into your life, who may be able to be your significant other, like you already set the bar yourself there. So now people who are coming into your life, they have to meet and exceed that bar that you put in place. Um, yeah, someone that's been single for almost 2.5 years. At first, it gets lonely, and definitely there are different times of like loneliness, but then also like you realize like you haven't met that person right now, like in that capacity, but you know it exists, so you always have hope, and you know like it's a knowing that it's gonna happen. So I actually remind myself like when the timing is right, everything always falls into place. Um, but definitely, I wouldn't encourage jumping from relationship to relationship. Like if you break up with someone, I would say definitely take some time for yourself. Take some time to get to know yourself. Take some time to be alone, and really take some time to reflect on any lessons or takeaways that you can gain from that experience that you had. Because if you're jumping from relationship to relationship to relationship, like you're not learning anything. And if you are learning something, you're not taking time to integrate it to the next relationship. You're just, I would say, you're just filling a void space. And I don't know about you, but if all of your relationships look like the same, it's just a different name and a different face, that means that you're attracting a certain type of person. There's a quote that I heard. They said, how does it go? They said, if you're not something about like you have to get very clear on what you want, and I don't remember how it went. I will find that and I'll put it in the captions though. Basically, it said it talked about like uh, what something about choosing. I don't remember how the quote went. Um, if you're not choosing, I don't remember how the quote went. But basically, like if if all your relationships look the same and it's just a different name and different face, then basically you're attracting that same person to you, subconsciously, of course. So, for example, like a lot of my relationships that followed after my long-term one, they were people that would, I would say, take advantage of my kindness and overgiving. So, because I used to be an overgiver, I would attract a lot of people that were takers. So that was one. I'd say that was the biggest one. And if you find yourself attracting the same type of person, the same type of relationship, I mean, there's a lesson to be learned that you haven't learned yet. And you're subconsciously choosing people. So if you have abandonment issues, you'll attract somebody that's going to abandon you or leave you or make you feel like you are alone even when you're with that person. Um, if you are an overgiver, you attract someone that's overtaker. So really, it's lessons for us to learn within the relationships, so we can heal that parts of ourselves to attract then the actual quality partner that we want. And that lesson will repeat until you learn it, and then integrate it. And I promise you that because I've had many of those repeat relationships. Different name, different body, same relationship. Different person, same relationship. So, um, also the biggest thing I would say, if you are single, I would say focus on becoming the person who you want to be with. Or if you're looking to make friends, I would say become the person you want to befriend. Like don't go out chasing people, attract people to you, and you do that by becoming the version that you want to attract to you. So ask yourself, would I date me? Like you right now, as you physically stand, who you are right now, would you date yourself? Write down all the characteristics, the qualities, what this person acts like, the behaviors, all their character traits. Like write that down, who you want to attract, and then become that person. And eventually you will attract that person to you. Um, So yeah, that is, I guess that's the biggest lesson that I learned over the years in my relationships. Um, I'm interested to know what you guys have learned in your relationships and if any of this resonates with you. This is episode 1. Let me know if you what you want to talk about next. And I didn't really know like where this was going, so I just wrote down some stuff that I want to talk about, just some quick little notes, and then just kind of elaborate on it. So like my stuff really isn't scripted. So um, that's my takeaways. I would say right now in my current life, I am still single, and but I've never been, I say, more at peace, I would say. And there's a part of me that's like, oh, maybe we'll just stay single so no one comes in and like messes it up, you know. But it's like that's like a subconscious thought, you know. It's like, well, mess what up? It's like, okay, so like if I'm happy or finally at peace with being single, you know, and then I date someone and then like we break up and then I go back to like a period of like loneliness or sadness. It's like, but I feel like it wouldn't be that because I went through that phase and I learned how to overcome that. I know what it's like to go from that to this. So like you're gonna get to a point to where you're so you'll be so comfortable being single, I would say. Doesn't mean you don't want to be in a relationship or that you don't have a desire to be with someone, but you're gonna get to a point where you may be in a relationship with someone. It could last a month, 2 months, 3 months. Maybe it will last forever, but maybe it doesn't, and you guys end up breaking up. And you get to a point to where if that does happen, that you know you'll be okay, because I say that you survived the worst of it. You survived like those dark times where you were by yourself, where you felt so lonely, you know. And loneliness is one of the like the most challenging feelings I would say to experience, in my opinion. But once I overcame that, and um, like I'm okay with where I'm at now. I'm at peace with where I'm at because I know like eventually the right person will come along, and whatever happens with the next one, like I came from a place from where I was at to where I'm at now that I know that I would only go back to this and not back to that. So you have to get to a place to where you know like I'm good with someone or without somebody. And only then once you get there, I feel as if you should, I would say, I won't ever tell you like what to do, but like I feel like once you get to that point, then I feel like you're being a good enough spot to start dating again, because you're not going to do things out of lack. You're not going to come from a place of lack in a relationship. You're going to come from a place of wholeness, a place of abundance. So like you have everything to give. You are whole on your own by yourself. Like you don't need anyone. So like need nothing, want everything. Like you don't need to be with someone, but the desire can be there. So when you do meet someone, you're not overgiving, you're not overthinking things, you're not putting that person on a pedestal. You're gonna have a solid foundation because you're gonna take things slowly. At least I will now, mentally, spiritually, then move to physically. So yeah, I guess that concludes episode 1. Um, Let me know what you want to talk about next, and yeah, hope you all have an amazing day. Thank you.